Good evening to everyone. Scott Barrett here, Newport Daily News. To be named later Vodcast, episode 5. Here tonight, we have the one and only Steve Hyder. If you don't know Steve Hyder, I don't know what to tell you. He's a legend here, certainly here in Newport. He's a legend in Pawtucket. He's a legend in Syracuse. You've probably heard him, maybe not seen him, but you've definitely probably heard him over the years. He is the former voice of the Pawtucket Red Sox, former voice of Syracuse men's basketball, and a Rogers High School graduate. So, Steve, thank you.
Scott, good to be here, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll get to all of your great, all the great jobs you did with your voice, but let's get to something a little bit more pressing. About 2 years ago, you found out that you had kidney disease. It's been kind of a long road, but we got some good news. So I will let you share the good news with all of the people who are watching.
Great. It actually goes back further than 2 years. I started feeling lousy back in around 2011, and I kept it really close to my cards, close to my vest, because I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want anybody to think, Hyder's sick, he's compromised, whatever. But that was really the main impetus to why I left the Paw Sox. So I apologize. I think I probably told you a lie back in 2012. But,
well, I have a quote here from you, so we'll read that later on.
But it was self-preservation at the time, and I've now found that was the wrong approach, because since I came out with my dilemma, people have been just unbelievable. So kind, so genuine, so generous. When I was finally diagnosed, as you mentioned, with kidney disease, and with that along comes 3 days a week of dialysis, which is a process where they filter the blood and they do the work that the kidneys would ordinarily do. Now we each have 2 kidneys, and mine don't work at all. They filter the blood, they siphon the waste out of you, and for whatever reason, it's exhausting. So you go 3 days a week. I'm there from about 10:30 to about 3, and I'm not good for much after that because I'm just beat. So I kind of regroup on the off days. And one of the great things is if this transplant comes through, which I'm told it's scheduled now for July 15th, I won't have to go to dialysis anymore.
Which I'm sure will be wonderful. You'll get your days back.
Yeah.
Now, Liz Hyder McMorrow, she is your first cousin.
She is I am told, I thought she was my second cousin, but I've been corrected. She's my first cousin once removed.
I don't know what that means, but I trust you.
Her father is my first cousin. Her grandfather was my father's brother.
Yeah.
And she is not only my cousin, but she's my guardian angel. She says.
Right. Well, I mean, so she sees. You break your silence to Kevin McNamara of the Providence Journal in January. He writes this great column, kind of going over why you're talking about it now, and you were looking for a kidney. She sees this column, and she contacts you. And the way that kind of happened was scary, that she was in an accident when she was pregnant, and while she was in the hospital, that's when she found out that you guys had matching blood types.
Well, you got all the facts right, just a little out of order. What happened was when she was in the hospital with her, about 7 months pregnant with her daughter, Natalie, she needed blood. So she vowed, she said, man, if I can ever help someone the way I was helped, I'm going to do it. So, and then the funny thing is, Scott, a lot of people say, I want to donate a kidney. I want to do this. I want to do that. And most people don't follow through, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's not for everybody. It takes a special person to donate an organ. It's not like I'm borrowing $5 from you. I mean, right. So when she said I'd like to look into it, I was like, well, thanks. I appreciate it. And she was diligent. She never wavered in her commitment. She went 4 months worth of testing. I mean, it's they dot every T or dot every I and cross every T. I mean, they make sure that she's going to be okay and that I'm going to be okay. So, I'll live to be 100 and I'll never be able to thank her enough. I mean, she's just a really special person.
I did a story about Tiverton coach and she gave a kidney. One of her former players gave her a kidney, and she needed it. She had a disease, I forget what it was now, but she had 3 people lined up, ready to go there. Jim Gillis has been waiting for 7 years. Do you feel fortunate that it happened as quickly as it did? That that it wasn't 7 years. That you didn't have to do this for another 7 years.
Yeah, because I've known Jim for a long time. We've talked about it a lot, and he's just a good guy. He's a real gentleman about it. I mean, no bitterness in him that I'm getting one. Because he's been through the ringer. I mean, and I'm praying, for him, and it's part of my regular routine. I mean, he deserves it. It's not easy what people go through that are on dialysis. Yeah, I mean, I could have used the average wait time in the state of Rhode Island is anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 years. And I've only been on dialysis 2.5. So very lucky. I mean, it seems like a lot longer, but I know I'm not kidding myself. I mean, I know I'm very, very fortunate.
You said in 2011, from 2011 to now, or to when you started dialysis, what happened there? You were just not feeling great? I mean, were you just wait to go to the doctor and get it diagnosed?
No, I started feeling lousy at the end of the 2011 season, and I didn't know why. So I went to the doctor, and I had chalked it up to just the long grind of the season, the fatigue.
Right.
Long story short, I had a heart attack,
and
I didn't know it.
Really?
And, he says everybody thinks it's like this big Fred Sanford thing where you grab your chest and, oh, Elizabeth, I'm coming. But he said, you had it. And so I had a little bit of damage to my heart. They put in a pacemaker. Never told anyone. I just went back to work for 2012 and wanted to see if I would feel better now. And I didn't. I mean, I was, starting to get the effects of what turned out to be the kidney disease. And I was a little bit burnt out. I just needed, to stop. I mean, the travel, everything was just too much for me.
So July 15th,
yeah.
Doctors say everything's kind of just waiting. Everything looks good.
She's passed all the tests. I'm through with all the protocol. So now we just need they only do so many per month.
Right.
And by the time she got cleared and I got my okay, they were all filled up for June. So July 15th. And
is that a Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, they always do it Monday mornings. That's what I found out.
Yep.
The 2 girls who I interviewed for the story from Tiverton, it's really, you guys are in adjoining rooms. It's out and in.
And in very a matter of minutes.
Right. The whole thing takes about 6 hours. Is that what they said? It's a little bit longer for you
for me, yeah.
than it would be for her.
And
hers is about 3.
Yeah, and her recovery time, she'll be in the hospital 2 to 3 days, knock on wood, and I'll be in 7 to 10 maybe.
Yeah. Well, before we get there, there's a fundraiser. This is what we're actually we're here to promote and support. June 11th.
June 11th at O'Brien's.
This coming Tuesday night, O'Brien's down on Thames Street. Be there, show up. What time to start?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
to 7 p.m. And it's been spearheaded by a group of my friends who are calling themselves Team Steve.
Yep.
Maureen Philbin, Hakan Durdwan and his wife Karen, John Trefero and his wife Suzette. These people have, I never thought I'd use these words, but I'm fortunate. I mean, I know they've spearheaded everything. Everybody's been so generous. They started a GoFundMe page for me. They're putting on this fundraiser. It's remarkable. And the people of this city, people that I've worked with in the past and that I went to college with, that I worked with in Syracuse and Chicago and Columbus. I mean, people have just reached out. Jim Boeheim, Billy Andrade, pro golfer, who I've known since I was a little kid. We used to play golf together at Wanham and Tonomy. Lenny DiNardo used to pitch for the Red Sox. He's on Nesson now. These people have all donated and been very generous, and those are just the people I mentioned because people might know who they are. Hundreds of people that I know and some I didn't know came through, and it's humbling. It's overwhelming. I feel somewhat like my favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life, and I feel a little bit like George Bailey at the end of the movie when the people are coming and he's standing at that table and they're just dumping money on the table because he meant something to these people, and he didn't realize it. And I never realized, I guess, that I had an impact on quite a few people. And it's overwhelming to know that that I may mean something to these folks because they have come through with flying colors. It's remarkable.
If you can't make it on June 11th, as you said, there is a GoFundMe page. It's called Support for Steve Hyder. If you just do a search for Steve Hyder, I think you're the first one that comes up.
Must be,
yeah. You've already amassed $22,804. But, this is not cheap. I'm guessing that this a kidney transplant is not exactly inexpensive, that this money will be used.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that aren't covered.
Right.
It was funny when my friends approached me about doing this GoFundMe page. I had never heard of it. I didn't even know what it was. And they explained it to me, and I thought, well, okay, maybe 5 or 6 people will donate $20 or $40, and that'll be nice, get a couple $100. And then it just started coming in, and it's, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Have you been surprised?
Oh, every day.
Yeah.
Literally, Scott, every day I'm shocked by people I hear from because some people I hadn't seen since high school, people I might not have even thought were, close friends, but for whatever reason, it struck a chord with them and they wanted to give. And I think I found out that people are really inherently good. When you're a young guy and you're idealistic and you think that people are good, and then you get a little older and you get cynical and jaded. Well, now I'm back to 180 because I can't believe how good people are. I really can't.
Let's take a step back here. High school, you're a Rogers High School graduate. You were a class of 1979?
79.
Yes. Okay. So what I didn't, in my little research leading up to this, that you were an all-state shot put guy.
Yeah.
So, first of all, was Charlie Gibbons the coach there?
Charlie Gibbons, it's very rare when you can pinpoint someone who was a difference maker in your life. Charlie was a difference maker in my life. Passed away this year, unfortunately. Yep. Charlie was a beautiful guy. Loved him. He took an interest. I didn't go out for track till I was a senior. And he could easily say, "Oh, senior, what's he going to do for me?" He spent every afternoon with me in that gym. Hyde, you're not leaving till you get 10 throws over that rope. And some nights I'd be there till 6, 7, and he didn't care. He'd stay, and he made sure that it got done. And as a result, I was able to go on and compete at the University of Massachusetts at Division I level, set the school record there in 1983, and that stood for 18 years. So, Charlie and that Rogers was Rogers High School was a beautiful experience for me. I loved it.
From UMass, so when does broadcast voice kind of get into the equation here? Is it high school? Is it before we started this, we were talking about WADK, and the first time he was on the radio and happened to be with Bob Angel, who I do want to bring in here because I think Bob would make for a great interview. Makes my job easier. Is it you and Bob, when you guys can talk and I don't have to do as much talking, it sounds great.
Yeah, the first time I was ever on the air was in 1979, Youth City Government Day. WADK was above Brick Alley down on Dame Street at that time. And my uncle had been a radio and TV guy. So I was kind of a little fascinated by it. And I don't know, I kind of went astray a little bit. And then after working at a series of jobs that I didn't really care for, I was like, why don't I, do what sports had always been my passion. I had gotten a job as the public address announcer at Old MacArthur Stadium up in Syracuse. Met a guy, Dan Horde, who eventually became my broadcast partner years later with the Paw Sox. And he kind of guided me through the maze and told me what to do. And It worked out.
So what year is that? Like,
I was probably in my mid-20s at that point.
Okay, and so we're talking 1988 or so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so your first job was Syracuse?
First job, I got a job at a little station down in Cortland, New York, which is south of Syracuse. Worked there for about 6 months. Got hired at a little station in Syracuse after that. And people heard me and they liked me, and they brought me over to WSYR, where I spent the next 10 years as the sports director, color guy for the basketball games, sideline reporter for football, play-by-play guy for the Syracuse Sky Chiefs at the time.
Well, the timing must have been great, because Syracuse was just kind of on the rise. They made the final in '87.
Yep.
And then, and then Boeheim becomes this kind of a household name, and certainly by the mid-'90s, and,
Yeah, we went to the national championship game in '96 against the Kentucky Wildcats. Of course, so that was a team that overachieved. I could mention the names, and nobody's ever heard of them.
I looked it up. John Wallace is the only guy I've ever heard of.
Kentucky that year had 9 guys that went on to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we only lost by 9 that day, so it was pretty remarkable. But to be the last guys broadcasting, the last guys working, it's a pretty special feeling, when it's a national championship game and it's you guys and the Kentucky guys.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's funny. There are like little tidbits and moments in your life where you remember like little sports moments. And John Wallace hit this 3 against Georgia.
Yes.
And it was on a Friday night, and I happened to be down visiting friends at UMass Dartmouth that night. But I remember it. I remember it as plain as day. What a shot that was.
That was March 22nd, 1996. And the reason I know that was the day my daughter Carly was born. I wasn't at the game.
Oh, no way. You didn't get to make the call?
I didn't go to that. That was out in Denver, and I missed the game against Georgia. But I think against my now ex-wife, but then wife's, I don't think she really wanted me to go to the Final Four, but there was no way I could miss that.
Right. So what year did your contract not get renewed, and was any bitterness there? No bitterness. What happened was the station that I worked for, WSYR, had been the voice of the Orange for 50 years. Right.
And then all of a sudden they lost the broadcast rights.
Yeah,
so we weren't doing the games anymore. They couldn't pay me. They didn't have a need for me really anymore. So I was out of work for about 2 weeks. I got hired by Sporting News Radio out in Chicago. Funny story, my producer, a guy by the name of Paulie Sibilia, who's still out in Syracuse, had sent them a tape because he was trying to get a job out there as a producer. They heard the tape of my show, and they liked it, and they hired me. So I still owe Paulie a dinner or something.
There you go. All right, so by 2004, that's when you come home. Was it glad to be back in Rhode Island? I mean, was that ever a dream job for you, or did you ever follow the Paw Sox? Did you ever go to any games when you were in high school or anything like that?
I had worked for them back in the 80s in sales.
Yep.
I moved back here because my kids were living in Connecticut. So I said, well, I didn't want to be that far away. I was living out working in Columbus, Ohio. So I got back, started working for them again in sales, and then all of a sudden Dave Fleming, who's now the voice of the San Francisco Giants, left. And I said, well, the radio job opened up. I want to be considered. And they're like, well, we want, I said, well, listen, if you want me to stay here doing sales, let's talk radio too, because that's what I've been doing the last X amount of years.
Right.
So 144 people applied for the job, and I got it. So that was like keep finding the needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was the dream. I mean, I thought, I'll work here for a couple of years and hopefully get on to the big leagues after that. And for whatever reason, never worked out.
Anywhere, like nowhere in the Bay. I mean, because you probably would have gone.
Oh, I would have gone any place.
Right.
But I got some interviews. I was down as a finalist, and you never know what the truth is.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is, one person has to really like you. The decision maker has to really like you. So they can tell you, oh yeah, you're one of our top candidates, but if the guy who's making the decision doesn't like you, forget it.
Yeah.
So
I'm
at peace with it. I mean, I it's not like I didn't try. I mean, I gave it my best shot, and loved doing the Paw Sox for a long time. until those last couple of years when my health made it tougher.
Right. So to go back, this is what you told Josh Krieger back in 2012. It's kind of lost its luster riding the buses, staying in hotels. You've got to love it like nothing else. It's got to be that passion, and I feel like I've lost that passion for minor league baseball. So how much of that is truth?
That was all true.
Right. I mean, so how much? I bet that is riding the buses and staying in hotels is probably not.
When you're in your
not where
20s,
you want to be. Right.
It's fun and it's kind of exciting, and when you're going around the league for the first time. But after 12 years in the International League, 3 in Syracuse and 9 in Pawtucket, man, I knew every restaurant, I knew every hotel. I mean, I could have driven to Scranton. I knew the route so well.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the beauty of Syracuse University. We were always going somewhere different all the time. I went to 38 different states doing Syracuse basketball.
Right.
And in the International League, going to the same 11 cities multiple times in a season.
But you did, when you were there, we're talking 2004 to 2012. I mean, we're talking the height of the Red Sox kind of dynasty as you see guys come on through, Buchholz, Lester, Pedroia at the time. I mean, anyone stands out, who was the best guy that you saw play? We'll start with the Red Sox organization, and then maybe we'll move to everyone else.
Well, I mean, obviously Pedroia, Youkilis, Lester, Papelbon, Ellsbury, Buchholz. I mean, I can go on and on.
Right.
Those guys were great. I mean,
could you tell at the time that this is going to be the guy?
A lot of times you could, but a lot of times not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh yeah, I predicted every single one," because But and then there are other guys who you thought would be, number one prospects like Lars Anderson and Michael Bowden, guys you thought might have big, long, successful major league careers, and for whatever reason, injury. Ryan Kalish, another one, a guy who had worlds of talent and got hurt and never was able to fulfill his potential. So there's a lot of reasons that, whether it's health or the game speeds up on you. You make it to the AAA level, you've done something special. But if you get to the big leagues and last up there for any amount of time, that's 1 in a million.
You told us back in 2012 that you weren't really sure what you were going to do. You were starting to write a book. Did you ever finish the book? The book was going to be about the Paw Sox season, maybe touch on your time at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Did you ever get around to doing that?
I wrote it a couple of times, and I was never really happy with it. I've changed it now to...
Well, your life has changed.
Yeah.
Significantly. And
it's also... It went from being a nonfiction story to a novel. That way I get a little poetic license to tell the truth, but not incriminate anyone.
Yeah.
I don't want any lawsuits. And so...
feel free, though, to share them with our viewers right here.
So its latest incarnation. I'm working on it with another guy who I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, so I won't at this point. But it could be, I'm hoping to have it done and finally eventually published. It's been a long time.
Right. But there's been a few more chapters added as your life continues to go on and twists and turns and everything that that goes there.
Exactly.
So what's next? All right. So let's say the kidney. It's going to go great. We all know it's going to go great. You're going to be 100% healthy again. You are, I was thinking about this. So let's see. You're 17 years older than me. I'm 41. You are 57 or 58?
57. Yeah,
57 years old.
In August.
What's next?
That's a good question. I've been working part-time down at Easton's Beach. During the winter, I worked at the hut for the Newport Recreation Department. My boss, a great guy, Eric Reese, who runs the whole rec department. He knows my physical limitations. So he's, working the parking lot a couple of days a week. It's a nice diversion to not be doing something that's health related all the time. So, but I would like to get back to some meaningful. Not to say that my job isn't meaningful, but professional broadcasting, maybe a talk show, something along those lines. I could never go back to the grind of baseball. I wouldn't mind doing a little basketball. Maybe somebody will give me a chance.
Right.
I'm kind of hoping.
You stood at the pipes. The very, very nice voice.
Well, thanks. It's kind of disappointing to me because my voice is not as strong as it used to be.
Hey, you could have fooled me. I'm right next to you too.
Yeah, people are very kind when they tell me that. I know though. I know what I used to be able to do, and I know what I can do now.
Yeah.
What I don't know is what I will be able to do.
Well, I mean, it can only go up when you think about it. As you get healthier, get your strength back, and then who knows? Maybe you get back into doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
I mean, do you miss it?
Yeah.
I mean, not the grind, not the hotels and the buses and anything like that, but the action, the
camaraderie.
Right. Well, I mean, even the action of the game and calling it, seeing and being the voice to people who can't see it.
I figured out I've been to over 2,000 minor league baseball games. So I've been to Fenway twice since I left after 2012, just to go because I'd had enough baseball. But I do miss the camaraderie, hanging out with the guys. It's so strange now to not know anybody on the Red Sox roster anymore. Now that Pedroia is not playing anymore.
Yeah.
That's how quick the turnover is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that long ago, really, but in another way, it is. So, see what happens. I don't know. I mean, I'm way more optimistic today than I was 6 months ago, and that's thanks to Kevin McNamara's article, to my cousin Liz, to all the fine people who have been there for me.
Do you regret not doing that 2.5 years ago to say, to reach out to me, to Kevin, to Bob Angel, to anyone who would listen, to say, listen, let's get this out here, with the power of the media?
Yep. My doctor, Joe Romanello, he said, when I said to him, I go, what do you think? And he goes, you'd be crazy not to do it. Mm-hmm. He said, because you never know who's going to read it, who's going to know about it. People are going to remember you. They're going to want to help you. And, I mean, how crazy is it that it was my cousin? She didn't even know. I mean, that's how few people I told. I mean, I just, not embarrassed, but I just didn't want to burden people with my problems.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like,
it didn't make any sense now looking back on it.
Right. Well,
it's the wrong approach.
$22,000 of a GoFundMe. Clearly, you've made some pretty good relationships over the years.
I guess. I still can't. I get to pinch myself. I can't believe people like me that much.
Well, hopefully this helps.
They like me more than I like, myself.
Well, you're a good guy. I like you. All right, June 11th, O'Brien's Pub, 5 p.m. Go. Have a great time. Yep. Support. And if you can't make it, GoFundMe. Support for Steve Hyder. Steve, such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Best of luck the rest of the way. Everything's going to go great.
I appreciate it.
Guys, thank you very much. You have any questions either for me or Steve, rattle them off. Otherwise, if you have any suggestions for who should be coming in here next, sbarrett@newportri.com. See you next week.